This is Myra Elaine on the Buying Space channel. Today I am continuing reading the Torah. I do want to qualify something about the Torah. The Torah is the first 5 books of the Old Testament. The other day somebody said that I read different types of books other than the Bible. The Torah would not be that, because the Torah was later included in the Old Testament in traditional Bibles. So you can turn to your traditional Bibles and find the book of Leviticus and the entire Pentateuch or Torah. So it's not a different book. Now, this translation is different than probably the Bible you have if you're Christian, because the English in this book is translated directly from the Hebrew. Most other Bibles are, their translation is slightly different. I feel the meanings are closer to the original intent when the English is translated directly from the Hebrew. And I think it's a closer version of what was originally written than later versions. But I won't go into how later versions were inspired or not inspired. That's another video. So in the book of Leviticus, it's not telling us a story. In Genesis and Exodus, we heard about the people. The people were traveling. The people begat other people. The people went on an ark, and they had a great flood. All of those are narratives. Leviticus is not a narrative. It is actually a set of rules laid down by God to Moses about how we are to make sacrifices and how we are to atone for our sins. This is called the Mosaic Covenant. Prior to the Mosaic Covenant was the Abrahamic Covenant, and Christians have the New Covenant. So the Mosaic Covenant is what most modern Jews feel that they're under. They're under the Mosaic Covenant. So I'm going to go ahead. Last time I read verses 1 to 5. I'm not sure if I read 5, so I'm going to reread 5. And thou shalt kill the young steer before the Lord, and the sons of Aaron the priest shall bring near the blood, and they shall sprinkle the blood around about upon the altar that is by the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And ye shall lay the burnt offering and cut it in 2 pieces. And the sons of Aaron the priest shall put upon the altar and lay the wood in order upon the fire. And the priest, the sons of Aaron, shall lay in order the parts, the head, and the fat, and the wood that is on the fire, which is on the altar. But the innards and legs shall be washed in water, and the priest shall burn the whole on the altar as a burnt sacrifice, an offering made by fire of sweet savor to the Lord. So I'm going to stop there. We're talking about a steer, an oxen, a bullock. It's called in other versions, that is being brought, and the person making the sacrifice the sinner, the person that needs redemption, the person that wants to become closer to God, that's bringing the sacrifice for their sins in this burnt offering, is laying their hand upon the animal. They're transferring their sin to the animal. And the person bringing the offering actually cuts the throat of the animal. The priests don't do that. The priests then take the animal and cut it up and clean the intestines and the legs, because you want your sacrifice to God to be pure. There's a lot of business about things being and people being clean or unclean. Being unclean is not a sin, but once you do something that makes you achieve uncleanness, if a man has laid with a woman while she's having her period, he's considered unclean until he washes. They had baths called mitzvahs. So going before the Lord unclean is a sin. Being unclean is not. And I know that's confusing, but I'll talk about that later. It's just that we should know that sacrifices of blood, life is in the blood. The priest would come up with a pitcher and catch the blood and sprinkle it on the altar. And the life is in the blood. And the aroma of all of this sacrifice, cooking, burning, was pleasing to God. Now we're going to go on and find out that people make other sacrifices besides the large oxen or bullock or cattle in the temple of the congregation. Now, the timeline of when this happened was they were still at Mount Sinai. They were there for about a year. Moses went up on the mountain twice for 40 days. And then the second time he came down, they built the tabernacle. And the end of Exodus, they've completed the tabernacle. So now we're getting the instructions on how to make sacrifices, how to use everything in the tabernacle to please God. Those rules for atonement and for many other things that we are going to learn about as we go through the laws of Leviticus. I hope you all have a wonderful and blessed day.